Storytelling is an ancient tradition that has been with us for thousands of years. That is because we relate to stories. Our bond with stories goes back to our early childhood, to the bedtime stories, to the stories we heard from our grandmothers. We associate stories with comfort, with learning, with self corrective actions, with dreams, especially the mythical ancient stories that have propagated on this earth for thousands of years. They are living legends transferred from generation to generation, not just because they are interesting, but because they hold some valuable lessons. But are we benefiting from them in today's age and time? Do we have the aptitude, the openness of mind, and most of all, the time to receive them? Are they being related to us in earnest? Do the narrators have the inclination to do the right thing by the listeners and by the characters in their stories? That is what I hope to touch upon today. Hello, namaste. Welcome to the podcast Something Old, Something New. I am your host, Rohini Abhyankar. I will begin with the story of Yayati the way I knew it earlier, and then I'll add the newly learned parts, which I find are equally, if not more important, than what is in the popular version. Yayati's story, as it trends in the collective common knowledge, is a complex story of love, lust, and deceit. The second, less known part is uplifting, full of knowledge, guidance, and insights into the gist of human existence. I will not go in the details of the first half, as I believe many of you would be familiar with it. I will share parts of the second, the hidden second half. The story goes like this. This is the outline. Yayati, the son of Nahusha, was a valiant king. He met Devayani, the daughter of the powerful Shukracharya, the spiritual guide to the Asuras. Shukracharya was feared among all for possessing powers that could inflict serious harm to his enemies. Another central character in the story is Sharmishtha, the princess of the Asuras, who was forced into servitude by Devayani and her father. Yayati was attracted to Sharmila and Devayani both, but was trapped by Devayani into marrying her. On the technicality, basically. Devayani and her father had forbidden Yayati from seeing Sharmishtha. Yayati falls in love with Sharmishtha, but has relations with both the ladies, Sharmishtha and Devayani, and fathers five sons, two with Devayani and three with Sharmishtha. This relationship with Sharmishtha is discovered by Devayani, and the drama unfolds. Devayani forces her father to punish Yayati by taking away his youth with one harsh curse. Yayati becomes a frail old man in a blink of an eye. Yayati, still wanting to enjoy life and fulfill his desires, approaches his five sons and asks them to trade his old age for their youth with a promise to return it to them after 1,000 years. Four of his eldest sons refuse, while the youngest agrees. Yayati, realizing the futility of the exchange, returns the youth to his youngest son, coronates him as his successor, and departs to the forest. This is where the story ends in the popular version. This version has also been popularized by the novelist V.S. Khandekar, a Marathi novelist, in his book Yayati, that won a Jnanapith Award and has been translated into many Indian languages since. But there is more to the story. I came across the complete story as I was browsing through the English translation of the Mahabharata, the epic Indian poem written by Maharshi Vedavyas. The translation is by Sri Krishan Mohan Ganguli, published between 1883 and 1896. This is the closest I could get to the original Mahabharata, which is in Sanskrit. I have given the link below for those who want to read it for themselves. So let us turn to the second half of the story that I am excited to share here. Let us pick up the story where Yayati receives his son's youth on condition that it will be returned after 1,000 years. A note on the use of the word sahasra, which is loosely translated into English as 1,000, it generally used to express the passage of many years and not necessarily 1,000 years the way we know it today. So Yayati enjoyed life to the fullest extent, fulfilling all his youthful desires. However, as the years rolled by and it was time to return his borrowed youth, he realized that human desires cannot be quenched. The body becomes old, but the desires don't. The cravings only increase with each fulfillment effort, and the only way to end this illness, as Yayati or Vedavyas calls it, is to rein in and control one's desires. Saying this and naming his son as his successor, Yayati departs to the forest to live a hermit's life. There he follows dharma, the righteous way of life, eating leaves and roots and doing strict penance for a long time. He becomes well known for his discipline, righteous acts, and pious deeds, so much so that his fame spreads across the three worlds. As a result, he is given an entry into the heavens with his youthful body. He gains a youthful body in the process. Yayati has learned his lesson and is not affected by joys and sorrows as before. He has no wants or desires and yet is able to enjoy the fruits of his penance in his heavenly abode. The story does not end here. There is more. One day, as Yayati is talking with his friend who has befriended the king of gods, Indra, Indra asks him, who does Yayati consider as his equal in penance and piety? To this, Yayati replies that there is no one equal or at par with him. Lo and behold, this depletes Yayati of good deeds and his fall from heaven begins. Indra, the king of gods, explains that because Yayati gave his answer without really making an effort to find out what others have accomplished or where they stand, he has to fall to the earth. Yayati, as he is falling, asks Indra for a boon. He asks to land among people who are pious, righteous, and have done good deeds or are on the path of the right. The boon reflects what Yayati has become and how he is evolved and how he accepts his fate, accepts his mistake. Indra grants him the boon and Yayati lands among tapasvis or people who are performing penance. As he is about to touch the earth, his fall is intercepted by these pious tapasvis who happen to be Yayati's grandchildren. And as he hangs in mid-air, a conversation between the matriarchal grandfather and his grandsons ensues. A conversation that is about life's wisdom, societal wisdom, the do's and don'ts, the code of conduct in 4 stages of life. This is the gist that ought to be transferred from generation to generation. This conversation is concentrated knowledge of the time, most of which is applicable even today. But there is one small twist. All of grandsons of Yayati offer their good deeds to him so that he can ascend back to heaven and fulfill his remaining desires. But Yayati has learned his lesson. He turns them down and as a result exhibits the maturity, the evolution that has taken place and how he has controlled his desires and the desires for pleasure. The story ends with the grandchildren and the grandfather ascending to heaven in 5 golden chariots. This is such an uplifting story, particularly in comparison to the first half where there is a depiction of naked human desires and conflicts. So why do we not know about this part? Why do we not know about Yayati's story and his hard work in walking the righteous path with discipline and care? Is it because the narrators themselves don't know this part? Is it because this story will not sell? Is it because people do not have an appetite for life lessons? I understand that these may be difficult concepts for younger audiences or audiences not inclined towards big spiritual or philosophical preachings. But why not end the story with something like this? After learning his lessons, after realizing that one can never quench their desires, Yayati walked on the righteous path with care and hard work and penance. As a result, he ascended to the heaven with his descendants and set a glorious example for all of us to follow. So that is the story of Yayati. There are many such stories in Mahabharata where we know only the partial story, part truth, the part that sets an example or imparts knowledge where people can learn something is hidden or lost. The analogy I have for this phenomenon is that the shell is handed down from generation to generation, but the pearls of wisdom are lost. Hope we can find treasure and share those pearls of wisdom from here on out. That is all for today. Thanks for listening. Until next time, this is Rohini.